Welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids Podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. It means so much to me that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here. Well, today is a little bit different. I actually have never done this before, but it was a crazy week last week. I was involved with my church's VBS and I had such a good time and I was so busy and it was good busy, good tired, good busy. When you're doing VBS, it's so much fun. But I didn't want to go without posting another episode. And I just kept thinking about this one interview I did a couple years ago with my friend Wilson Costa. He is a firefighter in Denver, Colorado. And I just had it on my mind that I thought it would be fun to repost this episode for you guys to hear the interview because it's so good and it's so interesting. There were so many things I learned about being a firefighter that I had no idea they went through. And I'm so much more appreciative of these community helpers than I ever was before because I learned all the things they have to do and have to go through and be prepared for. It's fascinating. And I think it's really going to make you appreciate whenever you see that fire truck driving by. So I want you guys to hear this recycled episode with my friend Wilson Costa. Wilson, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you about your job. I think you have a really cool job. And I think there's a lot of kids out there that are going to want to hear about what you do. Why don't we start with having you introduce yourself? Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Wilson Costa, and I am a firefighter in Denver, Colorado.
Very cool. We're going to get into that. I want to hear all about being a firefighter. Before we do that, I like to start out with something fun since this is a podcast for kids and families. So do you have any good jokes or some funny impression you want to share with us?
So Christen, since this is the first time I'm meeting you, I'd like to start off with a classic joke of mine. What do you call a fat polar bear?
A fat polar bear? I don't know.
An icebreaker. Hi, my name is Wilson.
That's perfect for like meeting new people and making friends.
It's very corny, very, just kind of like if you don't laugh at that, I question your sense of humor. So
yeah, then you don't want to be that person's friend. Yeah, you just move on.
I used it when I met my wife one time, and you know what? Like I said, she's my wife now, so I think it's
so it worked.
It works. It definitely works.
That's awesome. Well, okay, so tell us about being a firefighter. How did you get started in that?
Well, first off, let me say, I truly, honestly believe I have the coolest job in the world. Like, I love my job. I get to go to work, and when I go to work, I use that word work lightly because I have fun every day I go to work. Like, I get to hang out with buddies of mine. I laugh every day I'm at work. We crack jokes with each other. We get to help people, which is obviously the most important thing, but it is such a blessing and an honor to be able to do what I do. And so I'm so thankful that I get to do it, but it is truly, a calling, I believe, but it is just, I personally think it's the best job in the world. I won the lottery, becoming a fireman. So how it all started. So ironically enough, I was never that kid when I was younger who wanted to be a fireman. I had a lot of people actually in my immediate family who were firefighters. My grandfather was a fire chief in the Air Force for about 25 years there in Hawaii. So my mom would always tell me stories about him when she was growing up, how he always had to run off to fires and do all this really cool stuff. And then I have some first and second cousins in the Bay Area who are firefighters in San Jose's fire department there. So I always knew about the fire service, but I never was that kid who always wanted to go to the firehouse.
Yeah.
How I kind of got into it was when I was a senior in college. I went to the University of Arizona, and I was about to graduate, and I was getting my degree in history. And I was like, man, what am I going to do with this degree? And so for a while there, I thought I was going to go to law school, but I didn't want to be a lawyer really. I wanted to work in the world of sports. I have ADHD and ADD really bad. And it's not a bad thing to have it, but I'm very hyper. And I knew for me personally, the kind of job I would have to have is something, energetic, something where I could be very active, not only, like working out, but just activating my community. And I knew that's the kind of job that I wanted to have.
Yeah.
So my senior year of college, I took an EMT class, to get my EMT certification. And the guy teaching it was a firefighter. And just sitting, talking to him, he just talked about the job in like the coolest way. He said he loved going to work. He loved his job. He loved his buddies at work. He enjoyed everything about it. He always had a good time. Obviously said there were some tough days, unfortunately, because firemen do see some pretty bad stuff sometimes, but he just thoroughly enjoyed his job and looked forward to going to work every time he went to work.
Yeah. How could you not want to have a job like that?
Exactly. And I had friends who had graduated the year before, who were in the finance world or just other jobs, who did not like their job. They made a great salary, and it was what they wanted to do, but at the same time, they just didn't like their jobs. And as I started to do ride-alongs and just interview other firemen, none of them ever said they hated their job, not once.
Really?
And so that really stuck out to me. Like, okay, if I've interviewed like 10 of these guys and they don't know each other, and they're just, other firefighters in other departments, and they've all said the same thing as far as like, I love my job, I love going to work, there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
So I just started looking into it more, and the more I researched it and did some ride-alongs, I was like, oh, this is so much fun. This is so awesome.
For ride-along, would you just like jump in and follow, ride in the truck with them while they go to these houses? Or
so most big departments have a recruiting officer, which is like either a captain or a lieutenant who's in charge of recruiting. And so if you contact them and say like, hey, I'm interested in becoming a firefighter, can I do a ride-along? A lot of them will let you actually do that.
Oh, wow.
Like you put your name, your phone number in, you give them your information, they call you. But you can ride along with firefighters for a day. Most big departments have that. So I did that. And
that's cool.
Each time I did it, it just made me want the job more and more and more. And then helping people. I'm a big helper. Like I love helping people. Ever since I was a little kid, my mom and dad always told me, even like kindergarten, if I saw a little boy or a little girl crying, I would always run over to that little boy or girl and try to help them or fix them, or, just like, hey, what's wrong? How can I help?
Yeah.
So this is just, the writing was on the wall when I was younger. When I became a fireman, my parents were like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. You're going to be really good at that. That's something we can definitely see you doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. There was one time when I was a kid, I passed out. Like I think I had a stomach bug or something, and I fainted in the middle of a store in the mall. And so I was with my mom.
Scary.
And so she started, somebody call for help. And these firefighters were the first ones to arrive, and they were in full like fire gear, like the helmet and the coat and everything. And my mom was like, she's not on fire. She just fainted. She's so confused. So do you guys go to things like that where you respond to things that are not fire related?
All the time. I'd actually say about 90% of my job is medical calls. And I'm also a paramedic as well, just not only a firefighter. So a lot of what we do, I always say, when people are like, well, what do you do exactly as a firefighter? I mean, people obviously know we go to fires, but we also go to car accidents, emergency medical situations. But people actually call us. Literally, if they don't know what to do, they always just call us.
Really?
Yeah. This one time, this woman's basement flooded, and she didn't know where the water was coming from. She's like, I have no idea what to do. So she called 911 and said, my basement's flooding. We went out there, we shut her water off. But I mean, that's something we also help with. Obviously we're not plumbers, that's a job for a plumber, but we're helpers. Like that's what we do. We respond to situations where people don't know what to do. And if they need help, we're more than glad to help them.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about like your routine. Like what's a normal day look like being a firefighter?
When you, I'm chuckling to myself because when you say the word normal, one thing that I love about my job is there really is like your normal is not my normal.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense. So on a normal day, I get to the station around 6:30 at the latest, relieve the guy who is coming off shift so he can go home. Mm-hmm. Then I go through the entire fire engine or the fire truck. We do an inventory every morning. I check my gear, I check my air pack. I check all my tools. I check my bunker gear, all that stuff to make sure everything's set the way I want it and all that. And then we usually have a morning meeting with the two crews, and the captain talks about, hey, this is what we have on the docket today. We have to do X, Y, Z. A lot of people don't know we also do fire inspections. So businesses, apartments, living quarters, things of that nature, like they all have to be signed off by the fire department that they're livable and they have fire protection systems that are operating properly. So we do all those inspections and all that. So, we can get a pretty busy day without ever running a call. So we do that morning meeting. And then after that morning meeting, we just kind of get to work. The captain will lay out like, hey, I need you guys to do this. I need you guys to do that. We always do, after the morning meeting, we always do our chores. We always have daily chores, scrubbing the bathrooms, cleaning the toilets, mopping the floors, cleaning the kitchen. That's a daily task that we do every shift, every day, no matter what. If the rigs are dirty, it snows here in Colorado. It just snowed last week. So the rigs were pretty dirty because the roads were wet. So we'll wash the rig. We go over tool maintenance, making sure everything's clean and tidy and ready to respond to an emergency whenever we need to. So it's a lot of cleaning and just making sure things are prepared so that when we do get that call, when you do call 911 and we have to go to this call, that we're ready to go and that we can perform the best that we can, top-notch levels, just because, that's what the public has entrusted us to do.
Sure.
It's one of the things I love about being a fireman is like the public, when you see a fireman, you literally trust them with your lives if you don't even know them. Yeah. So that is a huge responsibility. Firefighters are invited into people's homes and places of business, at the worst moments of their lives, or else they wouldn't be calling 911, right? Right. And so people trust us, and we take that trust seriously. Like I take that responsibility seriously. I know all the guys on my crew and on the job, like firemen, we take our jobs very seriously in the sense of, you're trusting us to help you when you need help the most. Yeah. So part of that means, we drill, we train every day, we clean our gear every day to make sure everything's ready to go. And we also have fun, guys will have some pranks or, just cracking jokes or, it's a long day. So we like to have fun too. But that's kind of like a normal morning, I should say. And then right around lunchtime or before lunchtime, we'll go to the store and we'll go food shopping. We buy all our own food. The city doesn't provide us with food. We buy all our own food, which is very normal. And then come back, we'll make lunch. After lunch is normally like kind of downtime. And by downtime, I mean, it's not anything organized, but a lot of guys will work out. We got to stay in shape, right? So, every fire station has a gym. So a lot of guys will work out or they'll train or do something of that nature. And then usually by that time it's over. It's early afternoon. Guys will kind of relax for a little bit and then we make dinner. And then after dinner, it's kind of just like, just waiting for a call, kind of downtime. Guys will call their wives, guys will call family members, check in, see how, see how everybody's doing at home. And then we go to bed, but just because we go to bed does not mean that we're going to stay asleep. Yeah. We'll get calls throughout the night. So whenever we get that call, no matter what time it is, no matter what day it is, fire department is open 365 days a year, 24/7. So yeah, no matter what time you call us, we will show up.
Yeah. So you get to sleep there. Like how long are you at the station? Like 24 hours?
Yes. So my shifts are 24 hours. So I go into work usually like 6:30 in the morning. And then the next morning, somebody will come in and relieve me. And then I get to go home.
Okay. So do you work like every other day? Is that how that works? We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
So I work a Kelly schedule, or it's called the Denver schedule, but it's really just a Kelly day schedule. And what that is I work 24 hours on. So one day on, one full day on, and then I'll have 2 full days off.
Oh, okay.
So you and I are talking tonight. It is 6:30 my time here on a Tuesday. So I go to work tomorrow. So I'll go into work tomorrow morning at like 6:30, and then I won't get off work until Thursday morning at around 7.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So you get a couple days off to rest and to be with your family and things like that.
Exactly. It is. I'm telling you, it's the best job. It affords me a lot of free time to do other things I enjoy, but it also affords me the time to recover. I try to tell people, because a lot of people ask me like, well, what's it like to work 24-hour shifts? And I actually really enjoy it. But, if we are really, really, really busy at night, like the next day, I'm a little tired. So like, I'm going to need a little time to recuperate before, I got other things to do. So the one thing, I tell people, like, if you want to know what it's like, go to bed at your normal time, but have somebody in your household or a friend or your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad set your alarm on your phone or set your alarm in your room to 3 random times at night. But they're not going to tell you when it is.
You don't know when. Yeah.
You don't know when, but they're going to set the alarm for 3 different times. And each time you get up, within 1 minute, you have to get fully dressed, like shirt, pants, shoes, and socks. And then you got to run downstairs and do a math problem or do some kind of homework where you have to focus for 20 minutes and then try to go back to sleep.
Wow.
And do that 3 times. So
yeah,
that's what I tell people it's like.
That's pretty crazy. That would be pretty tough. Now I've always seen like all the gear that firefighters have to wear. Tell us about what you have to wear each time you have to get on the truck.
So we have our bunker gear, which is like your helmet, your pants, your jacket. And then you have your air pack, which is that bottle you wear in your back, and it's hooked into a hose line, an air hose that goes into your mask and your regulator. So we can go into fires and, if we need to be on air for something, say there's a hazardous materials accident or a tanker truck spills and there's gas everywhere and there's too much fumes and it's dangerous for us to breathe. We always have that air pack on our back so we can breathe that. And then you have your helmet. Your helmet it's not heavy, but I'd say anywhere from the gear that I'd wear, if we're just only talking fires, we're not talking about EMS calls, medical calls or just car accidents or anything like that. I'd say it weighs around like 60 to 80 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why guys got to work out. Guys got to stay in shape because that stuff is heavy.
That's like wearing a kindergartner.
That's like, if you're in kindergarten or first grade, it's like if you were to jump on your big brother or your big sister's back and they had to like run around with you and like go upstairs and do all these crazy things with you just hanging on their back.
Yeah.
We always tell kids in our youth programs is like, fire is not a toy. Fire is a tool.
Right.
We use fire to heat our houses. We use fire to cook our food. So fire is always a tool. It is not a toy, but I just really enjoy it. I really enjoy my job. Like I really enjoy helping people. And if people are having bad days, I want to help. And the cool thing about my job is when people are having the worst day of their lives, they've fallen and they've hurt themselves, or a family member is injured in a car crash, or just something bad happens, I get to go and try to make their day better, which makes me feel better.
Wow. What is it about your job that you don't like? Is there anything that you don't like?
Um, there's a couple things. Being away from my family sometimes is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, we don't want to, it's not trying to scare people or anything like that, but we as firefighters, and it's not just firefighters, it's police officers, they're really the heroes. And honestly, in my opinion, I love police officers. Um, they, one thing that I don't like about my job sometimes is I unfortunately see a lot of sad moments in people's lives.
Mm.
I see a lot of illness. I see a lot of, unfortunately, people dying, or people injured or hurt really bad. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like to see people hurt or injured. I like to see people happy, enjoying their lives, but I also know, um, because I like helping people, it's just, that's just the price I'm willing to pay to
Yeah.
help people. Like sometimes I don't get to see good things. Unfortunately, I have seen people pass away in front of me, but I've also got to deliver 3 babies, which is like the
Really?
coolest, craziest thing ever to see.
Wow.
Like to
Are
see the
you-
happiness on the family's faces, like on mom and dad's face once you deliver their baby. And like, it's like, there's no amount of money that could put into words that emotion to see how happy those people are once their child is brought into the world.
Yeah. Do you ever get scared or nervous when you're responding to a fire or to a situation?
All the time. I
Really?
know some people would be like, oh, I never get scared, or oh, I'm never nervous. Like, well, I'm not one of those people. I can tell you, I've been in several fires where I was like, whoa, that's really scary. Or like, whoa, that's really intense. Like, I'm nervous, but um, that's just kind of part of the job. Like, you kind of accept that, you're going to go into some dangerous situations. Um, and again, this probably sounds crazy, but I kind of like being scared like that
Yeah.
kind of fear, like that kind of adrenaline rush. I like it. But yeah, I definitely get scared. I definitely get nervous at times, but we train so much, and our training department there, at my fire department, they do such a great job of training us. And guys on the crews at the stations, like a lot of guys are really self-motivated to train on their own. So the
Hmm.
fire department is full of type A personalities. I can tell you that right now. And so there's a lot of really driven people
Yeah.
on that job who take, like I said, the public is trusting us to help those in need when in their most dire moments. So we take that responsibility very, very seriously. So like we train a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And once you do something long enough and you do enough training, I mean, yes, you can be nervous. Yes, you can be scared, but by anything, just like anything in life, if you practice a lot and work really hard, your training is going to take over and you'll be able to accomplish what you need to do, and, accomplish your goal.
Yeah. Well, and I think like I interviewed Laura Wilkinson a while back, who is an Olympic diver, and I
I
asked her
heard that
that.
one. That was a really cool
Yeah,
interview you guys did.
and she talked about like if you're not scared, if you're not nervous, then something's probably wrong. Like
Exactly.
you're probably not prepared for what you're about to do. So that fear is actually a
Exactly.
good thing because it's helping you to do the best of your ability.
Yeah. It lets you know. I had a senior fireman one time tell me we had a really big fire, and you know during the fire I was able to do my job, but afterwards I told him, I was like, man, like I was actually kind of scared when we got there. And he's like, hey kid, like if you're not scared, then you're doing something wrong. Because
Hmm.
like all of us get scared or nervous, like, hey, but like what you're doing. You've been trained well. This is what you're paid to do, and this is what you want to do. So just do
Yeah.
your job, and everything will go well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good advice. Tell us about like how does your faith in God play into your job? Like how does that affect who you are as a firefighter?
Well, I can tell you, I would not be able to do my job if I didn't have faith. Like if I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
personal relationship with Jesus Christ, I would not be able to do my job. And that's me. I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me,
Mm-hmm.
just some of the things that we see, some of the things I've had to do or that I've seen uh, doing my job. Like I said, on one end of the spectrum, I get to see the best, coolest things ever. Like we get to save somebody's life, or somebody's hurt and we get to help them and they live. and they come back to the station later and say thank you, and stuff like that is awesome. But on the other end of the spectrum, unfortunately, we do see a lot of really bad stuff, and I wouldn't be able to do my job if I didn't know that there was a heaven, and that God is in control of all this, and that even though I don't understand it, even though it may not make sense to me, my faith is what keeps me grounded in the sense of like, I don't need to understand it.
Yeah.
I don't need to understand it fully, although I might ask myself, well, why did that person get hurt and that person didn't get hurt? Or why did they live and they didn't live? I don't have all those answers. And so my faith has played a big part in that, of just helping me, like, you know what, Wilson, like, you're not God. You're nowhere near God. You're just a man. You're a simple human being. Like, you don't have all the answers, and it's not your job to have all the answers. But your faith is what's going to keep you grounded and strong, because he wants good for us in our lives. And
sure,
unfortunately, some bad things happen, but it doesn't mean that the Lord is bad or he wants bad things to happen to us.
Right.
But it's just, my faith is a huge part of what I do.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've actually prayed with patients in the back of an ambulance.
Really?
Yeah. We're riding to the hospital. Things are going well, but you can tell by the look on their face, they're nervous, they're scared. And I've definitely, like, the one thing that comes to mind is this one cold, snowy morning, we got a call at like 7 a.m. for somebody got burned by coffee.
Ooh.
So we're like, oh, that's painful. Okay. So we get there and we're looking around like, okay, who's hurt? And this mom comes running out of the house and she's like, you got to help my baby. You got to help my baby. And we're like, oh no, it's a little kid. And so we run into the house, and this little 9-month-old baby, kids, they, when they start walking, they start leaning on stuff and pulling on stuff and stuff like that. And he had stood up, just because he had learned to walk, and he had stood up, and there was a cup of coffee on the coffee table. And he had grabbed a cup of coffee thinking, kids, they don't know what it is. He had grabbed a cup of coffee and spilled it all over his lap.
Oh no.
And so, he had really bad burns on his legs, I could tell they were pretty bad. So we immediately got in the ambulance, started heading to the hospital. Obviously the mom was very upset. She's blaming herself. I can't believe, like, I let that happen. Like, this has never happened before, and it wasn't her. It was an honest mistake.
Sure.
She put the coffee in the middle of the table. The kid just learned how to walk. He reached over and grabbed it. She turned around for one split second.
Yeah.
It was a complete accident. But
especially with toddlers, that's all the time they need, is just a second or two.
All the time they need. Exactly. And so she was just very, very upset, and crying, and just like saying sorry to us, saying sorry to the little baby who was also crying, obviously.
Aww.
And so I just kind of whispered, not really whispered to her, but I was just like, hey, can I pray with you? And she immediately calmed down and looked me in the eye. She's like, would you please pray with me? And so we sat, there was 3 of us in the back, myself, the other firefighter with me, and then the mom and the baby. And we stopped and said a prayer. And I just prayed. I just said, Lord, please forgive this woman. Let her know that it was not her fault. Like, this was a complete accident. Lord, we lift up this baby into your hands. Please help this child heal, help the family heal, just be with this family, show them the grace and love and mercy that you show us every day. Amen. In fact, and she said, thank you so much. Like, she's like, I was so all over the place. Like, I really appreciate you doing that. And it was the coolest thing, to use my faith in that sense. I know some people might say it's not politically correct, might be a little unprofessional to pray, but, when it comes to God and political correctness and things of that nature, obviously they have their places, but I like to use my faith and my relationship with Jesus as like a positive in my line of work.
Sure.
Because we do see so many terrible things, I say a prayer every time we go on a DOA or something terrible that has happened. I always, kind of take a little time to myself, walk away, and I'll say a quick prayer. Like, Lord, please be with this family, comfort them, guide them. They're going to go through so much grief. Like, just please be with them and comfort them and let them know that you are God and that you love them.
That's amazing. And I know I've been in experiences like that where a stranger has helped me or prayed with me or done something like that. And I still remember it, So I think that
Yeah,
mom is probably
yeah.
telling a story. And then this firefighter just started praying with me.
Well, it's actually, it's actually actually a pretty cool story. So about a year later,
Hmm.
we were at the store shopping for lunch, and we had gotten all our groceries, and we were getting back into the rig, and this woman comes running up to me. She's like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And I was like, oh, is something wrong? What's going on, ma'am? She's like, is your name Wilson? And I was like, yes. I had this kind of bewildered look on my face. Like, I don't recognize this woman at all. Like, am I in trouble, or like, what's going
Yeah.
on? And she's like, do you remember me? And I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't. She's like, do you remember this little boy? And he's now 1.5, almost 2 years old.
Hmm.
She's like, do you remember him? I was like, no, I don't. She's like, do you remember that little boy who spilled coffee on his legs last winter? And I was like, oh my gosh, I do. She's like, you prayed with us in the back of the
Oh,
ambulance.
wow. Yeah.
And she said, thank you so much for doing that. Like, you do not know how much that meant to us, that you would do that in like
Mhm.
our moment of need. Like, we know you guys are professionals, and like, you guys treated us with the utmost
Hmm.
medical care. But she's like, you do not realize how much that prayer helped me calm down, helped
Hmm.
my husband calm down. Like, it just helped our family so much. And she's like, I just wanted to thank you and give you a hug for just thank you so much for like praying with us and taking
Wow.
care of me and my son. And to see, we don't always get to see that. Like,
Right.
we're there when it happens. We drop them off at the hospital, but we never really get to hear like what happened afterwards,
How
or
it
like,
turned out. Yeah.
how are they doing, how it turned out. So to see this woman in that parking lot just randomly, and then her son was there, and it was just a really cool moment. Like,
That's amazing.
forgive me for getting emotional
No, that's cool.
there, but it was just, I've got a soft spot, for kids, especially because,
Sure.
kids are, they're kids,
Yeah.
adults are in charge of taking care of kids, and like, anytime kids get hurt, it hits me, not in a good way. Like, I hate to see kids hurt, so the
Yeah.
fact that I was able to help that kid, or I should say we were able to help that kid, and he was doing just fine. There was no scarring or anything like that. He was just a happy 2-year-old. It
That's
meant the
amazing.
world. It meant the world to us.
Well, so is there like a Bible verse or something from God's word that you really carry with you as you go through your job?
The verse that I always think of as when it comes to my job is Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. And I've said that to myself so many times,
Mhm.
like I said, when there's a bad accident or something really terrible happens and I can't explain it,
Mhm.
I always go back to that Bible verse, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, because I don't understand why this bad thing happened, but the
Mhm.
Lord must know something that I don't, because, he's the creator of the universe. He
Right.
knows better than I do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to trust him, because I can't make sense of this horrible thing that happened. But on the inverse of that, like I said, I've helped deliver 3 kids. That is the craziest, most beautiful, amazing experience that like one
Yeah.
could ever witness. And I can't explain it. So I've just got to trust the Lord. Like, man, he knew exactly what he was doing when he created us, and, created
Yeah.
childbirth and all that. Like, it's just so cool. So that Bible verse sticks out in my head all the time.
That's amazing. Well, I just think this is so incredible. I think this is really comforting to hear that there are people like you in our communities that are so well trained and so excited about their job. I think that's such a good thing to know that that there's people that love what they do.
Like, I consider it actually an honor that I get to do what I get to do. I get paid a salary, which is nice. I'm able to provide for my family by
Mhm.
doing my job. But at the end of the day, I honestly think if I won the lottery tonight, I would still go to work and still do my job, and they wouldn't have to pay me. I really
That's
enjoy
amazing.
helping people. I enjoy the camaraderie of hanging out with all the other firefighters at the station. I enjoy the physical aspect of being able to work with my hands,
Yeah.
and I mean, and what kid doesn't like riding in a fire truck going down the road?
I mean, I'm thinking I need to be a firefighter now. You're making it sound so fun.
You know what? I bet you if you were to go to your local fire station and ask for a tour, those guys would totally give you a tour.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
I mean, maybe not right now because of COVID,
Well,
unfortunately,
that's
but
true.
if the garage doors are open to the apparatus bay and you can see the guys in there, stop by, say hello. I know I love it, and we love it at my station when people in the community come by, especially with kids. Like, we always love to have
Yeah.
kids at the firehouse, and we give tours of the fire engines and the fire trucks, and we give them little stickers and stuff. Like, that's really cool. That's a really cool part of my job that I get to do.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I've loved learning about your job. And so thank you so much for coming on and sharing about all of this.
Well, thank you for having me. Like, I really appreciate it. And I feel, again, honored that you would ask me to be on this podcast and, like, give you all the information and give you a glimpse into what we do. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, before we close out, I always like to ask my guests to give us a memory from when they were a kid. So do you
Okay.
have a memory from when you were growing up?
Um, what comes to mind is I was a Boy Scout when I was a little kid.
Okay.
And part of being a Boy Scout is, you get to go to summer camp, you get to hike and fish and do all this really cool stuff. And I got a really, really cool opportunity in the Boy Scouts when I was 15 or 16. I got to go work at the National Scout Jamboree, it only happens every 4 years.
Mm.
And you have to apply and, all this other stuff to get in. But I got picked to go work at the National Scout Jamboree, and it was in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia. And there were Boy Scouts from all over the country, Mexico, Canada.
Wow.
There was a contingency from Australia and Europe. They all flew over here to the United States, and it was just a really good time. We lived in tents. I thought that was really cool. We stayed in Army tents, because we were on an Army base. We got to stay in Army tents. We got to eat in the Army
Cool.
chow halls. We got to, go hiking and all this other cool stuff. I learned how to shoot a shotgun at this National Scout Jamboree. We got to do skeet shooting. The president, at the time was George W. Bush. He was going to come give us a speech, but unfortunately the weather was really bad, and so he wasn't able to make it. But we still got to meet the vice president. He came out and talked to us. It was just a really, really cool experience. And to be 15 years old and away from my mom and dad over the summer for 3 weeks on my own, I felt like, oh man, I was on top of the world.
That's awesome.
So that was a really, really cool experience I got when I was a kid.
That's very cool. I love that. Well, again, thank you so much first of all, for your service and what you do for your community. And also thank you for being on the show.
Not a problem. Like I said before, it's been a pleasure. I feel really honored that you would show interest in what I do and ask questions. And, again, I can tell you from the guys that I work with and most firefighters, we really appreciate the community, and we are very glad to do what we do. Like, we just like helping people, and we consider it an honor and a privilege to do what we do.
How cool was that? I love knowing that there are people like Wilson serving in our communities who are well-trained and love what they do. It just makes me so grateful. Wilson gave us some really great advice today that I think we need to remember. The first one being, fire is a tool, not a toy. Let's say that together. Fire is a tool and not a toy. Very good. So let's remember that, okay? And I'm sure there's been lots of situations firefighters have to face every day that make them nervous. And Wilson said, yes, you can be nervous or scared, but just like anything in life, if you train or practice a lot and work really hard, your training will take over and you will be able to do what it is you set out to do and accomplish your goal. I think that's great. And I loved when he talked about how important his relationship with God was to him, that he got to pray with people and help people in all different kind of situations. And he didn't have to have all the answers. That was in God's hands. He could just trust in God and know that God was going to help him out. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So I'm really excited to introduce you to my friend, Kayla.
Hi, my name is Kayla. My favorite verse is, "A friend loves at all times," Proverbs 17:17.
Thanks, Kayla. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast just like Kayla was, you can head over to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only, or you can find information about how to send it to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. Hey, if you'd like to support the podcast, there's definitely a few ways you can do that by following, subscribing, sharing this episode, leaving a rating and a review, and I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recycled episode of the Collide Kids podcast, and I look forward to sharing one more episode with you before my summer break. So, in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between, and all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.